Merry Christmas, everyone. It's Christmas, and like any good Christmas episode, we're going to be looking back on the year and we're going to be pulling together the five key things that we think you need to avoid in 2025.
Hey, let's take a quick second to do a little side note. If you're getting value from this podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you could subscribe wherever you're listening. So let's make this our gentleman's agreement. If you're getting value, we'd love it if you could just click subscribe, potentially the bell button, and make our day. Cheers.
Merry Christmas, Ali.
Thanks, man. Merry Christmas to you. Preemptively, we're recording this before Christmas, but this will come out hopefully on Christmas, and it's going to be fun for anyone hopefully listening in. Where are you going to be? What's your plan for Christmas Day? Where are you right now?
I'm going to be in Yorkshire, so I'm looking forward to my Christmas lunch, I guess. I am looking forward to my Christmas lunch, actually. It's going to be cold, it's going to be grey and miserable outside. I'm sure of that. You, not so much, I'm thinking.
No, not cold. I'm going to be in New Zealand on the beach. So that's awesome. So as people listen to this, hopefully if they're listening on Christmas Day, that's where I'm going to be. But because of time zones, I'll probably be sleeping.
So zero chance of you having snow on Christmas Day. Probably not much a better chance of me having snow on Christmas Day, to be honest. So I hope it is.
It's been a cool year. It's been an epic year. We have seen a lot of stuff. We have done a lot of things. This podcast came to be, and we're pumped about that. But we've also seen a lot of things happen between all the brands that we've kind of like helped and supported. So I think what we want to do today is to run through 5 mistakes that we have seen come up quite a lot. It's a little bit unique, so they're not the common ones there. Some of them bit unique ones. But we want to kind of flag those through and finish off with a bonus.
Absolutely. I think we should just say, right, we're not trying to be negative. This is not a negative end to the year. We're looking at 5 things that we can definitely, that we can look forward to improving on and that will really grow us into 2025, right?
Yeah. I used to work for the UN and they did all the reports about lessons learned. So this is our lessons learned. 2024
Lessons
edition.
learned episode. I like it. And this is our last episode of 2024 as well.
Done. All right. So let's run through. We've got 5 of them. We're going to go through them in order from 5 to 1. And
I'm going to kick it off. Okay. So my one at number 5 is fear of losing rank.
follow. I think I call it.
Yeah. Also
Follow,
known as
yeah.
follow. No, I don't think
Follow.
that one's going to catch on.
Yeah, it's not going to catch on. You won't have the kids speaking this one. But let's get some context on it, where it came about, and then what we mean by this, and let's go through it. So how is that a mistake?
To be fair, this one I dubbed as fear of making profit as well. So ultimately, we've had this discussion with quite a few brands over the years. It's like, hey guys, your stock's running a little bit low. Why don't we put the price up a bit? And the main pushback we had on this was, no, we're going to lose rank. And we were like, maybe not. Because actually, knowing how the Amazon algorithm works, putting the price up can actually improve your rank, doesn't necessarily bring it down. Definitely helps you with profitability.
Yeah, so let's kind of work through that. From the brand's perspective, they're thinking, I'm going to be more expensive. Less people are going to buy my product. Less people buy my product, I lose a velocity. If I lose velocity, I'm going to lose rank. And therefore, overall, it's going to hinder me, right? But we are trying to look at it from the other side of the scale and from the perspective of not the brand, but Amazon, because they're the ones who decide your rank. So do you want to explain that part of it?
So I think the key thing to say here is pushing your price up can actually affect your ranking and can work against you. But there are certain times when it can work for you and it's worth testing. So putting your price up a little bit, what it actually does is Amazon, whenever it's doing its calculations, it's looking at a search results page as real estate, and it's working out how much money it can make. It's on commission. You've got to remember this point. Amazon's on commission. So the higher the price, essentially the fewer units you have to sell to make Amazon the same amount of money. So sometimes putting your price up can actually help you rank as high, if not higher.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you have a high price, Amazon makes more money. Amazon likes it when they make more money. And therefore, they're going to stick you in a higher spot. So you may not, even if you lose a little bit of velocity, Amazon's still going to make some cash. So yeah, win-win, not necessarily a bad thing. So fear of losing rank or profit, Just a little mistake we've seen, and we thought we'd flag up because hopefully a lesson learned for the coming year.
Great. What do you got?
Cool. Number 4. All right. So this is when a brand will not understand the market and they just think about what they're doing in isolation. They just think about their business alone, right? So a simple example of this is when you set a target that works really well for your business, but is unrealistic for the category or the market, right? So you may say, I want to grow by 50%, and achieve this level of revenue, when in fact, there's no way you could do that within the market without either taking over the whole market or somehow creating customers that don't exist and bringing them into the market.
Yeah, and on the flip side, there's the other part of that, underestimating where the market's actually at. So you might be saying, hey, I want to do 15% growth, but the market's been growing at 22%. And actually what you're doing then is giving up market share. So understanding your market, really critical. You need to understand, where is the market at? How much has it grown? How much is it likely to grow? And am I actually growing my market share? Because that's what we all want to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do you prevent people from falling foul of this mistake? We know what we do for our brands. We've got a special tool that gives us a really clear insight into the market. If someone doesn't have access to our tools,
ultimately, there are a lot of third-party tools out there, not just our one. And so you look at that to understand where the market's at, what are your competition doing, who's winning, who's gaining. You want to see that within the market. There is data within Amazon, so you can pick out bits there. Brand analytics is really good. Definitely use that. Understand, but it will show you kind of like the trends on your category and on your product lines. So look at all of that information, look at all of that data, understand what your competitors are doing, what you're doing, where the market's at. Don't look at your products in isolation. Don't just pick a number out of thin air.
because it looks nice for investors.
All right, okay, because it looks nice to investors, or just suits you. You're like, hey, I'd love to do another 15%. Have some business reality around it.
Perfect. So as you're doing your plans for 2025 next year, lesson learned from this year, hopefully for people, will be understand the market and then make your targets and plans based around that. All right, cool. What have you got for us? What's next?
So number 3, applying the wrong metrics in the wrong situation, right? Okay. So I think there's so many metrics out there. Sometimes it can be really confusing as to which to apply and when. I think one of the ways to really simplify it, you either have one of two problems when you're on Amazon, right? Either you have a conversion problem or you have a visibility problem. And you need to just understand, is a problem I'm experiencing a conversion problem or a visibility issue? If your problem is a conversion one, then doing more advertising isn't actually going to solve the problem. Because if your product or your product details page isn't converting for you, sending more traffic, essentially it's just going to exacerbate the situation. You might sell a few more units, but it's not going to fix what underneath needs fixing. So come into terms with it, understand what the problem is, and just assign it. It's either a conversion issue or it's a visibility issue.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Keep it simple, right? We were selling it. So Coconut Merchant, my own business, what we do is we split the team into two parts. You're either on shelf or off shelf. So you either have to get the products on the shelf, sales, or get them off the shelf, marketing. And it's the same thing, only applied in digital context. You either need to get more visibility or you need to get more conversions. It's one of the two. Keep it simple. Don't stress yourself. Work down the funnel, find where you're losing customers, and apply that logic.
Absolutely. What have you got next?
Okay, so number 2. I'll say the title and then I'm going to explain it. So number 2, misunderstanding, indexing, and ranking. And now the context for this is, okay, so we do a lot of talks and we also go to a lot of talks and we hear about people pushing, especially in this kind of like e-com community, where they push the idea of indexing and index as much as you can under as many key terms as you can, right? And it just push as many as you can get, indexes under many, right? But what that really forgets is what you really want to do is you don't want to just index up under everything. You want to rank under the most important keywords for your product and your category, right? You want to rank as high as you can rather than index everywhere. It's quality versus quantity.
Right. So hear a lot of people and they kind of just use the same term. They kind of swap them around. The indexing, ranking is always the same thing. It's not. They're completely different things. I'd much rather index for a handful of terms and rank really highly than to index for a whole load. And so many people focus on this, like this width, this breadth of terms. And it's like, actually, what's really important to your business is getting found under probably half a dozen terms, right? That's when the majority of your traffic is going to come from.
You can make a whole business just around that, right? If you can grow and succeed purely on ranking under the keywords that you need to, rather than everything. All right, I'm going to give you number one.
Giving me number one. Okay, fine. So number one, right? If we were doing a top 10, then number one will be in positions 3, 2, and 1 because it's that important, right? It's stock and it's stock and it's stock. Staying in stock is the number one thing, right? And when we say staying in stock, it's not simply staying above zero. Ultimately, what we're talking about is having a minimum of, if you take your 45-day rate of sale, that 45-day rate, that's your minimum. That should be your zero. If you drop below that, then you're going to start losing out. And that is such a critical thing for people to understand.
In fact, it's so important. We did a whole podcast episode on it. This is like sorry for the shameful kind of like, into marketing about our own thing. But the truth is, it was so important. This is such an important topic that we did a whole episode about it. Overstocked versus understocked. Check it out if you want more information on it. But that is so important because that's the key problem we have. We deliver so many results, and often those results are suppressed or underinflated because we basically, the brands that we work with run out of stock and they can't maintain or keep up the levels, and that affects the whole thing.
So, Ali, we said we were going to do a top 5. We've done a 5, but it's Christmas. I think there should be an extra treat, a little gift, a bonus.
Yeah. So this one is probably a bit more of like, let's call it like the deeper meaningfuls or like more heart to heart for entrepreneurs or other people who are in the space. And it's not so much a mistake as a correction in perspective, right? And we see it a lot. I am a serious corporate here. I do this a lot. I think you are much better than me at this. But basically, as entrepreneurs or as people who are driven by targets or managers who are driven by targets, what we often look at is, this is the target and this is where I am. And we constantly measure ourselves against the gap between where we are and where we need to be or where we want to be. And that can be really depressing. It can be really heavy. And the truth is, there's another way of looking at it. And there's a whole book around this and there's a whole philosophy around it. And we'll put a link in somewhere potentially for the book. It's called Gap and Gain. But the other way of looking at it is the gain. So instead of looking at the gap of where you are, where you need to go, but look at where you were. Where did you start 2024 and where did you finish up? And what was done in between, and focus on that gain, because there's probably a lot of value in what you've done in that space and in that distance. And simply the fact that you've started that journey and you worked towards it and you've got somewhere is something that you should feel good about. It's Christmas. Treat yourself, give yourself a pat on the back for the fact that you've kind of done that, rather than just stressing about potentially any gaps towards your targets that you may have got to. If you're an employer, maybe you pass that on to, or pay that forward to your team as well. I guess what we're saying in this is not so much a mistake that people make in the e-commerce space. It happens everywhere. And I'm a big culprit in this because I'm always feeling a bit more down by the fact that the gaps between where I am at targets. And if we hit a target instantly, without even thinking about it, I'm subconsciously expanding the target straight away to the next level. And again, I'm back in this like sad phase about where I need to be. Whereas Zamir, who has 0 creases on his forehead, as opposed to mine, doesn't do that. Mr. Brightside Zamir is a gain man. And I have a lot to learn from them on that. And on that note, I'm also saying thank you, because that's basically, it's my Christmas gift from you to me as a lesson for this year to be more Mr. Upside.
I'm humbled by that, but I have to say, it's the ambition that you show whenever you're looking at the game, the gap. I think that's so important because that is what drives us forward. But I think particularly at this time of year, it's good to be somewhat reflective, right? We're sitting here now. We can look back. We should look back. We look at how much we've achieved. You're right. It is really important. And that hopefully then we use that to motivate ourselves for where we want to get to next. It's the next step. So I think it's a balance, right? But you are right. I think particularly as entrepreneurs, particularly as ambitious people, we see this time and time again where everyone's focused on these targets and probably feel bad about celebrating the wins, but we really should, because we take energy from those wins and we use those to help us reach the next set of targets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. So with that, guys, a virtual hug from us to you. I hope you guys have a great holiday season. And we're going to see you in the new year, pumped, ready to go. We're going to crush it, and it's going to be a great year ahead. So all the best. Thanks for joining us this far on the journey, and we're looking forward to an amazing 2025.
Come on, Ali. What's next?
One love.